Disc Unknown is a solo exhibition of work by Joe O'Rourke. Joe was selected through an open call to our Castlefield Gallery Associates, and that was part of a partnership with Pipeline in London. And part of that opportunity was to offer an artist the chance to exhibit at a public gallery here in Manchester and a commercial gallery in the heart of central London.
So Pipeline is a contemporary art gallery in the centre of London, so we're in Fitzrovia, and it has a focus on emerging practices, particularly those that are based outside of London. And we decided to put out an open call for an exhibition that would happen both at Pipeline, and then a second iteration of that exhibition would happen also at Castlefield the following month. And the idea was that the artist would respond to these two very different contexts, working within a non-profit, which is Castlefield, versus a commercial space in London, and what sort of work you would show based on those two very different environments, or how you would show it.
So I don't really start with a singular idea. None of the work is a singular idea. They contain sort of multiple ideas because the work is developed over a long time, and the materials I'm interested in using are materials that don't tell necessarily a single story, but they are to me they feel receptive of being read in different possible ways. A second body, the title of this work comes from a book called A Second Body by Daisy Hildyard. She proposes that everyone has their physical body and then another body of global consequence somewhere else in the world. So whether that's from taking a flight to boiling a kettle, how our actions result in another consequence somewhere else. So that was the kind of conceptual starting point, and then that developed into a painting which featured a table. Political theorist Hannah Arendt, I think it is, talks about a table as a symbol of something that both joins us together and divides us, and I found that interesting as a motif to use in painting. And this piece of work I was making in the studio was expanding and becoming more fragmentary, and then when I got the opportunity to work here, I thought I could keep on stretching that painting out to fill the windows, painting directly on the windows. So now it's sort of, I guess you could call it a disaster painting, where there has been this flood of water between the compartments of the windows, and there's this broken apart table with chairs floating in it. Also then thinking about how we're in a hosepipe ban at the minute, whilst data centres are consuming such vast quantities of water. So like with a lot of my paintings, I didn't start painting the water thinking about all these things, but often when I'm making the painting and the materials are open to receiving these different contexts from different places. So help you see it through the windows from a second body. So they can be sort of read together, but they also sort of separate works as well. And like a second body, it's made site-specifically for Castlefield Gallery. It's made out of materials that I've collected over the past sort of 12 years. Same with lots of the work in here. There's little fragments of photography that I took when I was 19, or some drawings I made when I was 23. A big part of this painting was actually cutting out the middle section of paintings I didn't like anymore, but was still quite interested in the fringes of them. This word help, in the same way that I use text in a lot of work, I like how it could be read in two different ways. So help could be an ask for help, or it could be an urge. So it could be telling you to do something, or it could be asking for something back. Similarly to a second body, in lots of my work, it's sort of thinking about the experience of living in what can seem to feel like a very sort of world that is past the brink of collapse, and how we sort of emotionally sort of navigate that. Disc Unknown, the title of the show, comes from this body of work I've been making called Disc Unknown, of paintings and collaging on DVD cases. It's just a sort of continuation of my use of found materials. So sometimes a material just comes to me, it's given to me, or I find it on the street. Other times I might be getting rid of things and for some reason they hold a sort of nostalgia or sentiment to me and I think I can reuse them. So that was the case with the DVDs. But then I was really interested in how it had sort of multiple surfaces and how that related to the way I'd been painting. I Want You Here was painted over several months. It's on an old advertising hoarding and it contains lots of different fragments of materials I've been collecting over the years. One of those speech therapy cards. I was interested in how the image had to be the most sort of classic example of that thing. I was interested in the sort of liminal space that object was photographed in, and I was also interested in how language was inherently bedded in the image itself. So that's one of the materials that entered into that work. There's some tools and materials in there. Well, actually spray painted silhouettes of tools. My granddad's old tools. He used to make model boats in his shed, and I inherited these tools and they'd just been in my studio and I'd always been wanting to do something with them. The title of the piece, I Want You Here, came from a song by Sharon Van Etten, the same name. And often music and language is either an entry point into a making process for me, or it can sort of help wrap up a lot of ideas that I'd been working on at the time. So the feeling of that song really helped me sort of push it over the line. The sentiment of the song is the idea of wanting someone to be there who is no longer there anymore. The collaboration between Pipeline and Castlefield was an amazing sort of creative experience. It was, I mean, sometimes exhibition making can feel like a sort of bookend of a body of work, but it's definitely felt more like a sort of, for me, like a speculation of where the work might lead in the future. And I think that came from this sort of quite distinct context of each space. So having a modest-sized gallery in London, this was an opportunity to kind of pare things back and really consider a more condensed selection of work. And then, yeah, the work coming to Castlefield and moving from painting as an image and an object at Pipeline to expanding that into sort of more of an environment at Castlefield Gallery has been, yeah, really sort of rewarding experience.